We know on Earth that all the methane, or 95% of the methane in the atmosphere, comes from biology. It comes from termites, from cows, from sheep, from wetlands and marshes. So when we see methane in the atmosphere of Mars, we're immediately excited about the potential that it could be biologically created. And even more so because we know it doesn't really last in the atmosphere very long compared to the 3 billion years that you mentioned. And so we know it has to be created. It's being created today in some shape or form or released. So that's a very exciting discovery that's been made over the last few years.
Is it significant where these discoveries were made on Mars?
It can be, of course. Now, we're lucky we're in Gale Crater and we have access to these mudstones, if you like, these very ancient mudstones. It's significant because we just drilled only a few centimeters below the surface, and lo and behold, we discover organic molecules. So for them to survive 3 billion years in these mudstones, at only 5 centimeters below the surface, one can only imagine what we might find in the surface when we return to the planet with that capability. So it's a very exciting discovery, both the methane in the atmosphere, and in particular, we see a seasonal cycle to the methane. It comes and goes in a predictable way. And this is what gives us leverage on it to understand what's going on in the future. So that's what's really new here with the methane and the organics. It's a very exciting, they're both exciting steps in the search for life on the red planet.
And that was NASA senior researcher Chris Webster about recent findings on Mars. They found organic matter in 3 billion-year-old mudstone. Is this more of that slow drip disclosure? Because we've already heard so many things about what's going on in Mars. Is this NASA's way of slowly feeding us? Because lots of people say this is the way they're going to do us. They're going to give you small bites, small pieces of information, let you chew a little bit so it won't be so hard to swallow. So NASA researcher Chris Webster, he went on to say, not only did they find organic matter in mudstone, that there's methane in the atmosphere, and that the methane is being created today in some shape or form, and it's being released, and it comes and goes in a seasonal pattern. And when asked if he thinks that if there's life outside of the solar system or on other planets, here's what he had to say.
You feel hopeful in your gut that there could be life on Mars?
Absolutely. In our solar system, certainly. And in Mars, there are many opportunities in the subsurface where you're shielded from the radiation. Absolutely. We're scientists, and there's nothing we've discovered today where we cannot rule out the existence of organic material.
As a researcher, he sounded very, very confident that it's life, or he knows, but that guy sounded very, very confident. And man, if he's that confident, I'm going with him. I hope so. It seems like that's why we're here. So as of now, here's what NASA's willing to admit about Mars. On September 28, 2015, they announced that they found water. And that's a fact. And as of June 2018, as of now, they found organic matter, ancient organic matter in 3 billion-year-old mudstone. And some sort of biology is currently, as of today, is currently producing methane in a seasonal pattern. Those are all facts. That's what they're putting out there. That's what's coming out so far. So that's what NASA's telling us now. But here's what some of the whistleblowers been saying for years about Mars. In 1976, Gilbert Levin, he was in charge of life detection experiments on NASA's historical Viking mission. The scientists said that he detected microbial life in the Martian soil. It's been arguments back and forth about whether there's life in soil. There was microbial life detected on meteorites that came from Mars that landed in Antarctica. There's been all kind of stuff back and forth, but not no serious confirmations until we had what we had today. Or should I say what we had in June, which is pretty cool. So let's go on to see what else whistleblowers have been saying. So some other whistleblowers, they've been saying for years that it was water up there. Before they made the announcement about water, they said there's water up there, liquid and frozen. And now that's been confirmed years later after these whistleblowers have been saying it. And you know what? The name whistleblower, whistleblowers are like early truthers. They tell us the truth early. We don't know whether it's truth or not until later on it comes out and confirm it. So a lot of these whistleblowers go from whistleblowers to early truthers because a lot of these guys were telling the truth early. And now we're getting confirmation of it. So with that, we got water on Mars, we got soil, and we got organic matter in Mars. And we got that methane that's being produced in a seasonal pattern. So could that methane be from vegetation? Could it be from trees? So shown here are some pictures right here. These are what whistleblowers say are trees. These are the large vegetation that's growing in Mars. Is this what's growing in a seasonal pattern? Is this what's producing that methane, that seasonal change they show? Like, he just doesn't want to come out and say there's stuff that grows in season up there, but let's just use their verbiage and see what they're saying. So could these trees, could this vegetation, are these pictures of real vegetation showing a seasonal change up here? When Arthur C. Clarke seen some of this stuff, and Arthur C. Clarke is a highly intelligent guy, is a father of our satellite communications and stuff like that, and a very, very smart guy. When he seen some pictures of these large trees, he said that he was convinced that there was large biology on Mars. Arthur C. Clarke said it. You should go with that. So right here we got pictures of trees and stuff like that on Mars. This is what the whistleblowers are saying that is there now. Let's see if they turn out to be early truthers. Will this be confirmed too? So another whistleblower about Mars is Richard Hoagland. Richard Hoagland, he briefed the UN in the 90s, and let me tell you, that is big. You're briefing the UN? This isn't no knock around over. This is the UN. He's briefed the UN on Mars and the monuments which he believed were there. So back in the 90s, which I ordered this off of pay-per-view, and when I seen it, I was blown away. It was one of the things that helped me turn the corner towards, if they got a guy like this sitting there saying that, it has to be something to it. So yeah, so Hoagland, let's see if the evidence that he showed of these large monuments and these pyramids and the face on Mars. Let's see if his claims come out to be true, that there was once a civilization on Mars. And let's see if he'll be known as an early truther. Mr. Hoagland, he puts out a lot of stuff out there about the moon and the Mars and the monuments. So let's see what goes on with him as it comes out later and later. Will he be one of the guys that's known to be right? So the face on Mars. The face on Mars was discovered in 1976. Discovered is a funny word because it was also on a comic book in 1959. I don't know how that guy got it right. I don't know how he just happened to pick a face and how he just happened to pick Mars. But we'll go into that. So Mars, so the face on Mars, 1976 it was discovered. And right here what I'm showing, this is a picture of a mask. This mask was studied by the NSA and the Air Force. You can see the initials and the case numbers below. The researchers studied the mask because it resembled the face on Mars, and also there was another figure 300 miles from Sidonia from the face on Mars that was wearing the same mask that they photographed. So this mask was important to them because they seen not only the face on Mars, but another figure 300 miles away from there on Mars wearing the same mask. So there's another face that's similar to that on Mars that has the same appearance. This mask is said to resemble a Sumerian fish god. Here we go with the Sumerians again. So yeah, so it's lots of interest in the face on Mars by different organizations, different people, and says right there at the bottom, got the NSA, United States, I believe it's USAF down there at the bottom. They wanted to study this mask in connection with Mars. And I think that's dope. So we got another Mars whistleblower out there. His name is Tom Van Flanders. Tom Van Flanders was the chief astronomer for the U.S. Naval Observatory. He and astronaut Brian O'Leary, they presented their findings. They had showed many pictures of structures, anomalies, and even vegetation. And among them, it was these glassy tubes he showed. These glassy tubes that run under the ground, above the surface, come through and out there. And when Chris Webster said that there's many opportunities for life to survive in the subsurface, remember that. He said that there were many opportunities for life to survive in the subsurface of Mars. Is this part of the opportunities he was talking about? And these glassy tubes and these giant tubes that run above the surface and below the surface, are these some of the opportunities he was talking about? That'd be pretty cool. I don't know how they can explain this. Is that natural? Is that what happens? Are we going to find out? These things are very interesting. And the fact that Tom Van Flanders from the U.S. Naval Observatory, an astronomer, was presenting them was even more awesome. And what was really cool was that while he was presenting this evidence, in the front row was none other than Ingo Swann. Ingo Swann has been called one of the best remote viewers. He's been called one of the best natural psychics out there. If you guys don't know what remote viewing is, remote viewing was it was part of our Operation Stargate, the CIA psychic spying program. People don't believe in ESP and don't believe in psychic powers and stuff like that. Well, your government did, and they had a program. And if you don't believe it, they released all the files as much as they could. They declassified some of the Project Stargate files, dropping a bombshell on us that yes, ESP is real, mental phenomenon is real. Not only that, we took part in studying it. We had a program. They have the guy's name and everything. And among some of those guys was Joe McMonagle. Joe McMonagle is a popular remote viewer. He's a retired Army officer, and he was one of the first psychics recruited for this, for the Army, for the CIA psychic spying program. So the CIA asked him to remote view some unknown targets. Those targets later turned out to be on Mars. And here's some of what Joe McMonagle seen.
And the first thing I heard was the coordinates. And this was my response. I got a great view of a pyramid form, sitting in a large depression. It's yellowish ochre colored. I get clouds, a severe storm, major geological trauma. And I was asked to visit the site before the trauma. They said, go back before the trauma. They said all the dirt had disappeared. There were now smooth walls. Everything was flat, megalithic. I said something about, gee, is this a new pyramid? Did they discover a new pyramid? Because it's really large. Shadow of people, fragments, memory of people. They said, go back to when they were there. Large people, thin and tall, wearing strange clothes, skin tight, very tight, almost can't see them. This is the actual target based on the coordinates. That's the face everybody's always referring to on Mars. This is actually the depressed area. This is the pyramid. It's actually a double-layered pyramid. Pyramid's huge, but different this time. The reason these were different is because they were a cluster. These are like shelters from storms. Designed for sleeping, I specified hibernation, sleeping through savage storms. I'm asked to find out why. They're an ancient people trying to survive that's past their time and age. They're waiting for the return of someone sent to find a new home. Their world passed through the tail of a comet. I had a sense that their atmosphere was stripped away or destabilized when it passed through the tail of the comet. This is an old fort. Now what's interesting about the old fort, and it's something most people don't recognize, this is actually a pyramid. That's one side, that's the other side, that's the other side. The tip is missing off the top and it's hollow. I don't know if you can see that. Kind of interesting, isn't it? They call it the old fort. It's always referred to as the old fort. But that's a pyramid that's been tipped off. The tip's been taken off. That's a grouping of pyramids. And that's a building, or what's left of a building on a sort of a plateau. And that's the drawing I did of the larger beings. What I think in actuality, there really are no such thing as Martians. What I think Martians are is us. I think we're descendants of the original and Mars. And we're the ones that never went back.
Right there. Are they part of us? Are we part of them? Are they part of this Anunnaki story, this them coming down and giving us life? You know, are they part of that tale? You know, and since they're so much taller than us, are they the giants in stasis chambers that we've been hearing about? Are they the ones that's in Antarctica frozen? You know, that they come down here and give us life? Lots and lots of things. When he said that they was, you know, holding over in, not sleeping but hibernating somehow, and it makes me think about the tales of giants in stasis chambers, the way he was talking about them and stuff, and it just blows my mind. And I wonder, when Elon Musk goes to Mars, will he become this intergalactic Indiana Jones to us and show us artifacts of ancient civilization on Mars? Will he be boots on the ground and come back and show us actual hard evidence of this stuff that's going on? You know, Werner von Braun wrote a novel in 1949, and he says on Mars there would be an elected leader, and he would be entitled Elon. So let's see if Elon's going to be that leader to go up there, Indiana Jones some artifacts and bring it down. But it seems like a lot of guys, a lot of whistleblowers, a lot of people have already had things to say about Mars before these things came out and were known to be true. These early truthers, these whistleblowers. So it's going to be fun in the future. It's going to be cool. We are learning so much right now. We're learning so much. It's the slow drip disclosure. It's the Pentagon with the Tic Tac story, with the confirmation of, yes, there are things that's unidentified. They're flying at objects and we can't catch them. And now you got this disclosure from NASA with the, we found organic matter and we got methane and a seasonal pattern and stuff like that. When we find more and more things like this that's coming out, and you just got different organizations being involved with trying to bring some truth out to let us know what's going on in the world we live in. And I find all of this stuff very interesting. I hope you find it interesting too. If you don't, sit back, listen, and learn. And man, shit is cool. Shit is cool. What a time we living in right now. I want to thank all you guys for your time, for listening. Thank all my subscribers. And man, what a great time we living in. What a wonderful time. I thought that's really cool. A lot of information out there about Mars. Things that we know to be true and things that we're going to look for in the future. So with that, folks, I'm signing out. Love you all. Peace.